Elena Moore stepped off the transport van at Fort Valor just past 06:45. Her boots were scuffed, soles worn smooth from use. The canvas bag slung over her shoulder had one strap hanging by a patch of stubborn thread. She didn't look like much, not by military standards. A few of the recruits turned to watch as she crossed the gravel, her uniform regulation but faded, sun-bleached in places. Her cap sat low on her brow, hiding most of her face. Someone muttered supply runner. Another asked if she was lost. A group of cadets clustered near the main gate, laughing between themselves. Rachel, sharp-faced with a blonde bun so tight it looked painful, nudged Dax and nodded toward Elena. She didn't even bother to whisper. Looks like someone's mom wandered onto base. Dax chuckled and didn't hide the smirk. Logistics must have made a delivery. Elena kept her pace steady. She didn't flinch or change stride. When she passed the registration checkpoint, the lance corporal barely glanced at her papers before waving her through. The clipboard in his hand dropped a little as he finally looked up and noticed her. He didn't say anything, just blinked like he expected her to disappear if he stared long enough. Inside the barracks, she was the last to claim a bunk. No one offered to move over. Her rack was at the end, near the back door, next to a broken locker with a dented hinge. She set her bag down without a sound and sat quietly on the edge of the mattress. The springs creaked under her weight. Rachel watched her from across the room, eyes narrowed, arms folded. Later that morning, during gear issue, Elena stood near the end of the line. Sergeant Fields, a tall man with a buzz cut and boots polished to inspection gloss, passed out standard kits. He paused when he got to her. "You new here?" Elena nodded once. "Your size?" "Medium regular?" He looked at her boots, then her bag, then handed over the vest and helmet without another word. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes said he was trying to figure her out. The group assembled on the parade yard by 08:00. The sun was high, heat rising off the asphalt in waves. Captain Morris arrived with clipboard in hand and mirrored sunglasses that reflected the whole line of recruits. His voice carried with authority, clipped and dry. "You..." He pointed down the line. Elena stepped forward. "You part of the laundry crew? Or you just wandered into my formation?" A few cadets laughed. Dax coughed into his sleeve, muttering something about special delivery. Elena didn't react. She stood at parade rest, her hands behind her back, her boots square to the line. "I'm Cadet Moore, sir." Morris didn't look amused. He checked his sheet. "Cadet Moore." "Huh. We'll see how long that lasts." Back in line. The drills started at 08:30 sharp. Push-ups, jumping jacks, squats. Elena followed every command. She didn't try to outpace anyone, but she never fell behind. When they transitioned to fireman carries, no one chose her. She partnered with one of the instructors instead. Rachel made a show of rolling her eyes. "I'm not breaking my back for that." Dax laughed and clapped her shoulder like she'd just won a round. In the mess hall, Elena sat alone. The far table in the corner was mostly empty, so she picked the end seat and ate her eggs and toast without looking around. The chatter in the room was loud, overlapping conversations about home, high school, weekend plans, last night's dreams. Someone tossed a grape her way. It bounced off her tray. She didn't react, just picked it up and dropped it on the napkin next to her fork. By 13:15 she was on the range, watching the rest of the cadets fumble with unloaded weapons. An instructor gave a quick demo with a blue barrel training rifle, then barked for volunteers. Rachel went first, fumbled a pin. Dax followed, nearly dropped the bolt. Elena waited until the last round. When her turn came, she moved with care. Her hands were quick, but not flashy, each motion deliberate. When she finished, the instructor looked at her setup and didn't say anything. Just moved on to the next name on the list. That night, back in the barracks, the lights cut out at 21:00. Elena lay on her back, staring at the ceiling, boots placed neatly beneath the bed. She heard Rachel whispering across the room. Someone snickered. Probably took a wrong turn out of a soup kitchen. Elena turned her head slightly, eyes half closed. The bunk above creaked as someone climbed in. Outside, the wind picked up and rattled a loose window pane. No one talked to her after lights out. No one asked where she came from. No one offered help when her locker stuck or her bunk sloped unevenly. She didn't ask for anything, just moved with the kind of purpose that didn't need explaining. By 22 Suror, the barracks had gone quiet. Elena remained awake a little longer, listening, thinking, memorizing names and voices. She was invisible, and that, for now, suited her just fine. By 05:30, the morning heat had already started pressing down on Fort Valor. The recruits stood in loose formation near the field, dust rising around their boots with every shuffle. Elena stayed near the back. Her boots, cracked at the heel and dark with wear, didn't match the shine of the others. A few glances found her. Dax snorted under his breath. Goodwill boots don't last past week 1. Push-ups came first, 40 at tempo, no breaks. Elena moved with quiet rhythm, her elbows locked low, breathing steady. The instructor paced behind the line, calling out corrections. He stopped near her for a moment, eyes on her form, then moved on without a word. Beside her, Rachel dropped to her knees mid-count and muttered something about cheap knees giving out. Burpees followed, then jumping jacks, then sprints. The field turned sticky with sweat. Elena's shirt clung to her back. Dust streaked across her sleeves. Her shoelace came loose on the second lap. She paused to tie it, fingers fast, knuckles scraped with grit. Dax caught up, leaned in, and bumped her shoulder just enough. She staggered off balance and dropped to one knee in the dirt. Someone laughed. Rachel called out, "Try staying upright next time." More. Elena stood and finished the sprint. No response. No glare. She took her place again, wiping a smear of soil from her jaw with the back of her wrist. The next round was relay carries. Each cadet had to lift and run with a sandbag across the lot. When her name was called, Rachel leaned into the line. Bet she asks for a lighter one. Elena didn't. She lifted the full 60-pound sack without hesitation, gripped it across her shoulder, and moved. Her pace wasn't fast, but it never broke. Her foot landed in a soft patch of earth near the turn. She slipped but corrected mid-stride. No stumble, no sound. Back in line. Her legs trembled beneath the stillness. Dax dropped his bag next to her boots. Let it fall loud enough to splash dust on her uniform. Sorry. Slipped. He didn't look sorry. By 07:45, most were hunched, breathing hard, hands on hips. Elena stayed upright. Her lungs worked slow and deep. Her hair stuck to her cheek in damp strands. The sergeant called for water break. Everyone scattered toward the benches. Elena sat alone again, towel draped over her knees. She took a slow sip from her bottle, eyes down, still listening. Rachel sat 2 benches over, wiping her brow, loud enough for others to hear. She said Elena moved like someone who'd only seen drills in a YouTube ad. Dax cracked up. Elena didn't move. She uncapped her bottle, drank again, and let the words pass without weight. When break ended, the instructor announced another round. Formation run, 2 miles, stay tight, stay sharp, fall out and you repeat. The group groaned but lined up. Elena took an outside spot. The run started steady. Dirt kicked up in short bursts. Around the first bend, Rachel veered just enough to elbow her. Elena stumbled off path, foot catching a root. She dropped hard, hands hitting the slope. The group didn't stop. A few glanced back. No one helped. Elena pushed herself up, wiped her palms, and rejoined the run. Her pace stayed even. Her eyes stayed forward. The fall left a streak of red across her wrist. She didn't slow down. The instructor said nothing, just marked her name with a check. No praise, no correction, just a mark. Elena ran the rest in silence. Her breath never broke rhythm. The morning after the fall, Elena walked into the mess hall just after 06:10. The line had thinned out, most trays already clattered down onto tables filled with noise. She moved past the crowd and settled at the same table in the corner. Her uniform sleeves were still damp from washing out the dirt. A faint scratch traced her knuckle, just above the wrist. She didn't try to hide it. She ate in slow, measured bites. No one joined her. Across the room, Rachel talked loud about a new PT record. Dax dropped silverware and made a joke about boot polish and fake grit. Elena tuned them out. Her eyes stayed on her tray, chewing quietly while the rest of the room kept spinning. Later, near the lockers, her bag was where she'd left it. Same pocket open, same strap frayed, but inside, tucked beneath her towel, a folded map. Fresh, no creases. The ink still sharp. She paused, hand resting on the fabric, and looked up. No one near, no one watching. Then she saw it. On the bench nearby, just under the edge, a protein bar, wrapped, placed deliberately. She picked it up, turned it over in her palm. It wasn't from the mess. These weren't issued. It was one of those endurance brands you buy off base. She scanned the room again. No one met her eyes. Except for one. Across the row, Kayla sat cross-legged on her bunk. Her arms were folded around a notebook. When Elena's gaze found hers, she didn't look away. She just gave the faintest nod. Not a smile. Just enough. Elena held the nod a second longer, then turned to tuck the protein bar in her bag. She folded the map with care and slid it between two notebooks, pressing the corners smooth. By noon, the air had thickened. Clouds drifted low, the wind turning the flags along the drill yard. During lunch, Elena took the same seat. Her tray was plain, nothing extra. But for the first time, Kayla chose the table next to hers. She didn't say anything, just set her tray down with a soft clatter and ate in silence. A few cadets looked over, confused. No one said much. When Elena stood to leave, Kayla stayed behind. Their eyes met again, quick and steady. Elena gave a slight tilt of her head, something just shy of a nod. Gratitude didn't need volume. That evening, after final formation, rain came. Light at first, then steady. The barracks buzzed with shuffling boots and damp shirts. Elena moved to her bunk, pulling her towel across her shoulders. As she reached into her locker, she caught another glimpse. A corner of the same notebook Kayla had earlier, now resting on the edge of her bunk. Its cover bore a taped corner and small initials. E.M. It wasn't hers. Kayla had moved it there. Subtle, unnoticed. Inside, tucked between pages, was a short hand-sketched layout of the obstacle range. Notes in pencil, arrows, shaded corners, paths most recruits wouldn't think to try. Elena didn't touch it yet. She stood for a long second, hand hovering, lips pressed flat. Then she reached in, slid the notebook free, and placed it inside her pack without a sound. That night, lights out felt less heavy. The quiet didn't ache the same. Across the room, Kayla lay facing the wall. Elena didn't speak. She didn't need to. The next morning, her laces stayed tied. The training base smelled like CLP and gunmetal. Long tables lined the center, each one prepped with standard-issue M4 carbines, cleaned but unassembled. At exactly 10 Sorzors, Sergeant Halbrook stepped forward, voice steady and clipped. Each cadet would have 2 minutes to disassemble, clean, and reassemble the weapon. Any misstep meant starting over. Time and precision both counted. Elena stood in the third row, her sleeves rolled halfway up. Her table was bare except for the rifle, a cleaning mat, a bore brush, and a small bottle of lubricant. Around her, cadets shifted nervously. Dax checked his stopwatch 3 times. Rachel bounced slightly on her toes like she was getting ready to sprint. The first cadet went 94 seconds. The second stumbled with the retaining pin. 142. Dax followed, dropping the charging handle once before finishing in just under 2 minutes. He grinned like it was a victory. Rachel cut hers to 130, barely reassembling in time. When Sergeant Holbrook called her name, Elena stepped up without a word. She didn't adjust her stance. She didn't shake out her hands. She just picked up the M4 and started. Pin. Charging handle. Bolt carrier group. Dust cover. Her hands moved without pause. The table became a grid, each piece laid down in perfect order. She didn't glance at anyone. She didn't even blink much. The cloth passed over the chamber twice. Precise. Bore brush down. Quick loop. Pulled clean. Reassemble. She closed the upper receiver with a click and pressed the forward assist. Then she stepped back, hands behind her back. Holbrook checked the stopwatch. 52 seconds. He didn't say anything at first. Just looked at the weapon, then at her. Then he pressed the forward assist himself. It held. He gave the charging handle a tug. Smooth slide. The magazine well was clean. No oil streaks. He turned to the other instructors. Gave a low nod. Nearby. Dax's face twisted. Rachel whispered to the girl beside her. Nobody ever hit sub 60. Elena said nothing. She stayed where she was. Calm. Almost absent. Holbrook raised an eyebrow. Where'd you learn to do that? She looked at him for a second, then at the weapon. Practice. He held the gaze a moment longer, then moved down the line. Later, when the cadets gathered their gear, no one said anything directly, but eyes followed her. Conversations paused when she walked by. Dax looked down when she passed him. Rachel picked at her sling like it needed adjustment. Elena returned to her bunk without expression. She folded her towel, adjusted the strap on her pack, and sat for a moment before pulling out a small cloth from her locker. She wiped her hands carefully, like there was still oil left behind. She never asked how she did compared to the others. Never explained where she learned to handle a weapon like that. But by the end of the day, her name wasn't just the quiet girl in the back anymore. It was the one who finished in 52. The range stretched flat and dry under the mid-morning sun. Dust hung low from the last volley. Wind flags shifted gently along the far berm. At 10:20, cadets lined up beside the shooting benches, each prepped with an M110 semi-automatic sniper system, magazines stacked, bolts locked back. The test was simple. 5 rounds. 1 target. 400 meters. No misses. Elena waited near the end of the line. She didn't touch the weapon right away, just stood with her arms folded, watching the others fidget with cheek rests and eye relief settings. Rachel fired first. Her second round clipped the edge of the bull. Dax followed. 3 good shots. 2 low. Both stepped back, nodding, but not smiling. When they called her name, Elena stepped up without a word. She slid into position, slow and measured. Her cheek rested against the comb in one motion. 1 breath in, then out. Her finger settled on the trigger like it belonged there. The first round cracked downrange. Spotters called out, center hit. Second, third, fourth, same, no delay, no adjustment clicks. The 5th broke clean. Bullseye. She sat back, fingers still near the grip. Around her, no one spoke right away. Lieutenant Morris stepped forward, squinting downrange, then looked at her scope. He frowned. It was off. 1/2 mil left on windage. At that range, that meant inches. He looked over at Sergeant Holbrook. Her zero's off. She compensated, without dialing. Holbrook just nodded once, noted. Dax muttered something low. Rachel didn't look up. Elena stood, locked the bolt open, and set the rifle down gently. She didn't check the target, didn't celebrate, just walked back to the line and waited. The range stayed quiet a little longer. Then the next name was called, but no one shot the same way after. The drill yard was damp from a morning rain, steam rising faintly from the mats laid down across the gravel. At 14:00, cadets lined up in pairs for the close-quarters combat assessment, gloves on, helmets secure, instructors circling with clipboards. They called names that no one volunteered. This was the drill where bruises weren't accidental. Dax smirked when Elena's name was paired with his. A few cadets exchanged glances. No one said it, but everyone knew he'd been waiting for this. She didn't flinch, just stepped onto the mat and stood facing him, feet planted, arms loose at her sides. On the whistle, he moved fast, not clean, not technical, just force. He grabbed her collar and shoved. The motion tore her shirt at the shoulder, the fabric splitting halfway down her back. She didn't fall, but she didn't respond either. Then the yard went quiet. No calls, no clipboard checks, just quiet. Her back was bare down one side, the edge of her shoulder blade showing dark ink, the lines curled tight. A snake, coiled and wrapped around a unit number, faded but unmistakable. Its head rested above a jagged V. The tail wrapped a stylized Specter skull. Colonel Briggs had been observing from the range bleachers. When his eyes found the mark, he didn't speak. He stepped forward. His boots cracked on gravel, each step heavy, deliberate. He stopped beside the mat, face pale, jaw tight. That mark? Where did you get it? Elena didn't look at him. Her voice was steady. It was given, not chosen. By whom? Specter Phantom. The silence deepened. A few cadets exchanged confused glances. Some didn't know what it meant, but enough did. Colonel Briggs straightened his posture, eyes fixed on the ink. Then slowly, he raised his hand and brought it to his brow. The salute wasn't fast. It was deliberate, measured, like he was saluting something more than rank. Specter Phantom had been disbanded nearly a decade ago, officially erased. Rumors placed them in operations that were never acknowledged. Deep cover, close extraction, urban recon. Their leader never named. Their members never public. Except for one thing. The tattoo. No one bore it without having trained directly under the ghost himself. The moment stretched. Dax stepped back, face pale, arms suddenly unsure of where to rest. Rachel watched from the edge of the group, her mouth half open. Elena reached up and adjusted what was left of her collar. Her expression didn't change. I trained with him for 7 years. Briggs lowered his salute slowly. You were his last student. Elena didn't nod. She didn't need to. The instructors stood still. One adjusted their grip on the clipboard. Another just exhaled, low and short. Someone in the back whispered. The ripple moved across the yard. No one looked at her the same. When the drill ended, Elena walked off the mat without being dismissed. No one stopped her. She crossed the yard alone, the ripped shirt still hanging from one sleeve, the snake still visible between her shoulder blades. Kayla caught her glance as she passed, her eyes wide, but not with fear, with something close to awe. Elena didn't speak. She didn't explain. Behind her, the cadets stayed quiet. And for the first time since day one, no one laughed. The command review met behind closed doors just after 07:00. A narrow room, one long table, 5 senior officers. Colonel Briggs sat at the head, expression neutral. Papers were passed around, names read aloud. Elena's came last. A younger officer, recently transferred from another base, raised an eyebrow as he glanced at the report. She's quiet, not a team builder, doesn't speak up in debriefs, maybe not suited for a leadership track. Briggs didn't flinch. He reached into his case and pulled out a sealed folder, marked with a black Specter emblem and a classification stamp long discontinued. He slid it across the table. Her file from Specter Phantom, read it. The officer hesitated, then broke the seal and flipped through the pages. As he read, his face changed. The corners of his mouth tightened. His eyes slowed. By the 3rd page, he didn't look up. She led ghost ops and field simulations by age 20, scored perfect on every reflexive fire test, 0 hesitation under duress, Final evaluation says she could teach half this base with one hand behind her back. Briggs nodded once. She trained under a man who never wrote reports unless they mattered. If she's silent, it's because she doesn't need to prove anything. The room stayed quiet after that. Across the yard, the tone had already shifted. Cadets didn't approach Elena, but they gave space now, a different kind. Not isolation, deference. During morning drills, no one bumped her shoulder. No one whispered. Rachel kept to herself, but her confidence cracked. She tried to speak up during a fire team exercise, claimed she never got Elena's hand signal to hold formation. Harrow reviewed drone footage. It showed Rachel breaking rank, rushing forward, setting off the tripwire. The siren sounded. The training team called a halt. Harrow brought the footage to review. There it was, Elena holding the signal. Clear. Intentional. Rachel ignored it. Points were docked. A warning placed in her file. She didn't argue. Dax wasn't so lucky. 2 instructors submitted incident logs noting his repeated pattern of undermining commands, subtle harassment, and poor peer cohesion. His reassignment came quietly. He didn't pack in front of anyone. By 06:15 the next day, he was gone. Desk rotation at a logistics post out west. Elena said nothing about either case. Briggs made the announcement in front of the cadets. Effective immediately. Cadet Elena Moore will serve as honorary instructor during final phase training. Her assignments will include peer assessment, marksmanship demos, and tactical breakdowns. Questions. No one raised a hand. Elena didn't smile. She didn't step forward. She just adjusted her strap and nodded once. That afternoon, she ran a dry fire drill using inert M4s. Her stance, her control, her sequence clean, fast, efficient. A few cadets took notes. A few just watched. One asked if she could do it again slower. She did. No explanation. Just motion. By evening, the air had changed. Not completely. Whispers still floated. But the edge was gone. Respect, reluctant, but real, had taken root. Elena walked the grounds alone as usual. But now, when she passed a group, they didn't turn away. They made space. It was just after 06:30 when the black SUV pulled through the front gate. No escort. No fanfare. The guard at the booth stepped back without being told. The driver didn't speak. The man in the passenger seat stepped out and closed the door gently behind him. Civilian clothes. Black jacket. Plain boots. Cropped hair. Eyes sharp. He didn't look around. He didn't need to. Colonel Briggs met him near the parade square. No salute, just a nod. General Kane. He said the name quietly, like it wasn't supposed to be heard out loud. The general returned the nod but kept walking, past the armory, past the range, toward the barracks. Elena stood outside already, her bag slung across one shoulder. Her shirt was simple, black, untorn, the tattoo hidden beneath it. They didn't speak at first. They stood a few feet apart. Then she shifted her stance slightly and met his eyes. You didn't have to come. Yeah, I did. That was all. Kayla saw them from the mess hall window. She didn't say anything, just watched. Across the yard, a few instructors paused mid-step. One leaned into another's ear. That's him, isn't it? They walked side by side to the SUV. Elena climbed into the passenger seat without looking back. The engine turned once, low and smooth. Then they drove out. Dust kicked behind the tires. By 06:45, the vehicle was gone. No orders had been given, no announcement made, but the base felt different after that. Later that week, during evening sweep-up, a young cadet named Riley stripped his bunk for inspection. Tucked under the frame, caught between the slats, was an old photo. It was curled slightly at the edges, black and white. A group of trainees stood in formation, blurred at the corners. One figure stood apart, smaller, tighter posture, focused. Elena. He brought it to Kayla. She didn't ask where he got it, She just nodded once and slipped it into a folder with other notes. Word spread fast, not officially, not on paper, but through shared glances and low voices behind doors. She trained with Specter Phantom. She beat the range with a crooked scope. The colonel saluted her. The story never came all at once. Just pieces. The photo passed through hands. The rumor about the general in civilian clothes. The empty locker with one broken strap hanging. Captain Harrow started calling drills with more patience. Sergeant Halbrook spent more time reviewing stance, less time yelling about boot shine. No one mentioned why. Rachel kept her head down now, still in the program, but quieter. During team runs, she didn't drift near the front. She didn't trip anyone. She didn't speak unless asked. The locker Elena had used stayed empty. No one requested it. No one stored their gear there. They said she never applied for promotion, never signed another instruction roster. But her name stayed on the sheet for peer reference. Her scores were still there, untouched, still perfect. Riley started using one of her diagrams for navigating the obstacle course, quietly. No one told him not to. By week's end, someone pinned the photo to the bulletin board inside the instructor lounge. No caption, no comment. Just there. Not a warning, not a tribute, just a reminder. And the story grew, not in volume, but in weight.